Terry's going to give us a talk about Sue's house. Not Sue Cole, but Sue's house. So I won't spoil his thunder by telling you all about it, which he's obviously told me. I let Terry tell his own story.
This is a story being told, so bear with me. I thought I'd just start at the beginning. It's a sensible place to start, right? Raised to be a reasonable person, put money in hats, do all the charity things. Never thought in one moment in my youth and my young 20s that I would be the founder of a charity. How does a charity begin?
Hands up.
I was married to a very beautiful woman who, at the age of about 34, was diagnosed with cervical cancer. We had 2 children, 2 girls. She went through the treatments. I'll tell you a story right at the end. But she went through a lot of treatments. They seemed to be successful. The cancer went into remission. We had another couple of years, and then it came back with a vengeance. To cut a long story short, on Good Friday, the 20th of April 1984, she died in the Marsden Hospital, leaving me with 2 beautiful daughters that look exactly like her, which is really interesting. I had, during that period of time, she had discovered a place called the Bristol Cancer Health Centre, which was totally unique at those times. We're looking at a time where there wasn't the sort of support that you get as being a patient in hospitals now. There was no emotional support, there didn't appear much counselling support. Very much decided that the way of treatment was medical, clinical. And we were looking for something elsewhere and discovered a place called Bristol, being run by a man called Dr. Alex Ford, who was right at the leading edge of all the other sort of compassionate ways that people should be dealt with and looked after if they've got that particular problem. We went there. My wife would go in and she would go to a variety of sessions. There would be counselling sessions, healing sessions, all sorts of variety of complementary activity. And for my sins, I wasn't that interested. I was interested in supporting her, but I wasn't interested enough in the notion of looking at all the way that the therapies were helping her. That they were helping her, I was aware. I mean, I would go and have a cup of coffee, I would go and have a drink. I wasn't that engaged. And then I saw how effective these people were being in not only my wife's life, but my own life, because she became stronger, she basically took us through her illness. She travelled optimistically, she was absolutely fantastic, and then she wasn't there. And I had met another lovely lady who was a counsellor and a healer called Katharina Collins, and Katharina said to me, you know, what now? And I said, exactly, what now? I've got 2 daughters to raise, what now? She said, no, what now about what you're going to do? And I said, well, what do you mean exactly? She said, well, look, you've got all that knowledge now. You've been a supporter, you've been a helper, you've been a carer for a long period of time. Are you going to let it go? Will Sue let it go? I said, no, but what does an ordinary person do? And she said, well, I've got an idea. Why don't we, with your blessing, open your house to people in the same situation as you and Sue, patients and supporters and carers. So we put an advert in the local paper saying that on a Tuesday evening we would meet. For 3 weeks, nobody came. Within 2 months, we had 30 plus people coming through the door. 30 plus. We had every room in the house was being used for some sort of function, whether it was basically to have the healers within it, to have counsellors in it, every room in the house. I met and married another lovely lady and had a young daughter at this period of time. This was going on for about 4 or 5 years. And we suddenly realised there was a new baby in the house. It was getting really untenable to continue doing what we were doing within the house itself. Fortunately at that time, a young man in his 80s came into the house supporting his daughter Sandra. And he said, look, I'd like to get involved with you. I realise there is a problem. Why don't we try and find somewhere else? So I said, well, that's a good idea, but if so, if we do find somewhere, can we have the same sort of ethos as in this house? It's not a house, it's another home that people went to. We don't want a clinic, we just want a place where people can go, where they can sit, where they can talk, where they can identify their problems and deal with it in a whole sort of range of emotional, psychological, intellectual ways. And we did. We went looking for a house. We saw 3 houses. The last one we liked, we thought this was quite nice. It had a garage on the side. And we started to rent it. And we've been going for a little while renting it, and suddenly realised that while we were paying rent, why didn't we put that into a mortgage and perhaps try to buy the house? So we did. We started doing that. We were very fortunate. We had a very good friend called Brian Hill, who was the mayor of Ilford, Redbridge, and we became the mayor's charity. And he raised 30,000 plus for us, and there was a big boost to do the house. And in 1994, we paid off for the house completely. It is now our house, and it's been running for 30 years. The interesting thing about it is we don't charge anybody anything at all. All that funding, the whole process of buying a house, the whole process of running the house, has come from very good people like ourselves. We have a terrific range of friends who basically have helped us and supported us in making the place run. What is it? It's a house, a normal house. It had a garage to the right-hand side as you're looking at the house. We put in for an extension because we were getting so big and there were so many people coming to us. Our youngest one was 4, our oldest person was 90 plus. We had a whole wide range of people. We live in a multicultural, multi-ethnic environment, so people of all different faiths and different ethnic backgrounds all coming into this one house. We definitely needed some sort of space, quiet space. We put in again to change of use of the garage and converted it into 2 very specialised treatment rooms with little beds in them and places where people could go and do the relaxation or whatever. The rest of the house is a house, and we have retained all the way through, and Ed will tell you, it's very much a part of this, we have retained the notion of a home, that people come into the home, they come into another house, it looks like a house, you know, there's a sitting room, there's another room with a little library, it's just a very nice environment. Now, when we started and became a group, we registered as a group. There were probably, at the time of our start, within about the first 7 years, only about a dozen cancer support groups in the whole country. None specifically targeted cancer groups, because one of the things that's grown is the notion of supporting people with specific cancers, whether it's male cancers or female cancers, where groups identifying specifically that can support that particular illness. That didn't exist. I remember going to a conference and talking to a group, again, a bit like today really, and they said, well, how many in your group? And we said, well, probably 30 or 40 plus. How often do you see them? Well, we see them every week. Well, all of them, but most of them come there every week. How do you deal with newcomers? Well, we welcome them, but how do you deal with newcomers when you must be losing people as well? And the answer to that was yes. Very much so. This is a major illness with consequences for a lot of people that we do lose people. Having said that, there are a lot of people that we're supposed to lose that we haven't lost that are still with us and are still doing remarkably well. So we must be doing something right, and the people who are doing the sort of things that we're doing are right. Our links go all the way through from the Macmillan nurses who come in and have used us as a base from time to time. Certainly the hospices, and I know you support St Francis, but St Francis, St Joseph, the Margaret Centre, we have all links with those as well. I hate hospitals. I absolutely loathe hospitals. There cannot be a hospital within a radius of about 40 or 50 miles that I haven't been into where there has been a friend, a patient within it. I am ambivalent about places of worship. I was raised as a Catholic. I think basically I'm a very spiritual person, I hope, but not necessarily a religious person. I don't think there's a place of worship that I haven't been in for a variety of reasons, celebrations, and also basically for saying farewells to people. We, what do we practice in the house? You come into the house. Counselling, really, really important. The people that we have in the house are people who are steeped in the knowledge of what it's like to be either a patient or a supporter. Because if you're coming into a house like that, what do you want? You want to identify with people who are the same situation as you, who are doing well. That's what you really want. You want to see somebody who's got the same illness, the same disease, and you want to see that they're doing well and that you can do the same. So you're looking for that sort of support. But at the same time, you've got people who are coming in who the week beforehand were saying farewell to somebody. And basically we might have a new person coming in, at the same time we've got another person coming in who basically, we've just suddenly lost somebody. What do we do? Right. We do this. We do lots of, hopefully, meeting and greeting and drumming up support and meeting new friends that help us financially to exist. Just to exist isn't good enough. It's basically to do things in it. What would they be? Well, healthy eating is a good one. Right, I'll give you an idea of healthy eating. A chap came with his wife, Clive, came with his wife to the house. The doctors have prescribed that he eat a much more varied vegetarian diet. So it's just one little vegetarian diet. That was his thing. And every week we come in and we say, has he given up the meat yet? No. Still vegetarian? No. Eat some potato, a bit of lettuce, that's it, fine. Next week he came in, has he given up the meat yet? No. Still the same. A little bit more potato, something like that, fine, okay, fine. She came in one day with him, sat down, and she went, yes. He said, good news? Yes. We made a vegetable stew. I said, right. And he ate it, yes. She said, we put in apples, we put in turnips, we put in swede, and we did this, and we stirred it up. And then we threw some beef in for taste. Another lady comes, a Spanish lady comes in, right? She's got she's supporting her husband. He's an old soldier, Gordon, a real old soldier. Dour, watching what's going on, not quite understanding why he's there. His wife's brought him there, not still understanding. And his wife said, can I have a word with you, Terry? So I said, fine. So we go into one of these other rooms and she said, look, I don't know what to do with him. He's really, he's given up. You know, he doesn't want to do this, he doesn't want to do that. I said, well, you're telling me that he's a bit on the mean side. She said, yeah. I said, well, what you do is you go back in there and you buy him a new pair of boots, but you make sure it's got a 5-year guarantee. Because that way he's going to live for another 5 years because there's no way he's going to give it that guarantee. And just before you do that, you buy him another one. It worked for about 8 years, which was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you give this advice and you sort of think, and it physically works. We have had all sorts of major funny experiences. Katerina and I used to go all over the place because, as I say, there were very small groups. Another group starting, and we used to go there and sort of sell the idea of doing groups. And she was a very proud lady, very well-dressed lady, was going to speak at a group somewhere up Cambridge way. And the lady at the other end said, oh, look, we'll come and we'll meet you and we'll bring you a car. Fine, how will we recognise you? She said, well, I've got dark hair and I will be wearing blue. Fine. So she goes to meet, gets on the train, goes to the station, gets off there, and there's a lady waving at her. This is great. Goes to the lady takes a hand. Oh, you're our speaker. Takes a hand, takes her up, puts her in the car. Going along the road, suddenly realised it's the wrong speaker. It's the wrong lady. She had picked up the wrong speaker. She had to turn around and go all the way back. And there's another lady there with another piece of paper waiting for Katerina, and another lady who was another speaker. They didn't know each other at all. So she literally had been picked up by the wrong person. It all worked out right, and I think basically that was another group that took support from us. So literally we've got the healing side of things. We've got a thing called visualization, which is a super thing to do. you don't have to be ill to do visualization. Part of the problem is if you're feeling an ache and a pain, you're on the downside. We're talking about really the notion of an approach to any of life's problems, which is a total looking at, holistic way of looking at it, which you know in yourself that if you've got a headache, you don't feel so good yourself, your body aches, you spiritually feel down, you don't communicate. Literally, all those bits are connected, so we try to deal with each of those little bits individually to help the person to support. So one of those is visualization, and we use it a lot, certainly when someone's got a particular cancer problem, which is to identify what the problem is, and then to identify your immune system, to give it a character. We had a young man, late 20s, who was still diagnosed with melanoma, but still very athletic, which is quite strange. And he had real problems visualizing how he could deal positively with what he saw as being, something very, very negative. And we said, look, when you go running, every time you put your foot down, you go, gosh, you little bugger, gosh, you little bugger, gosh, you little bugger. You're squashing your cancer cells as you go along. You're physically, every movement was a reinforcement of your body and your body supporting, doing something positive for your good health. We're in our 30th year. It was on my birthday that we actually, which is a good reminder, which actually opened the doors of my house. 5 days we were there, 5 years we were there, moved to this house which is there now. We looked at, about 4 years ago, the nature of what we were doing. We were called the North East London Cancer Help Centre. And we were having people coming in from, south of the river coming in, certainly coming in from the west, certainly from Southend, coming in from the north. There was no other place like us to go to. So the word spread and people were coming from all those places. But we looked and realised that we were missing out to a degree because literally we were Ilford based and that we were a local charity and that most of our people were local people. So we decided that we would rename the charity from being the North East London Cancer Help Centre to the Ilford Cancer and Holistic Centre, so that we were basically dealing with, because we had lots of other people knocking on our door saying, look, I'm not a cancer patient, but I believe you might be able to help us. And there's no way that we could turn people away. So what we would do, we would just endorse the sort of things that we were doing and hope that they made sense to them with their own particular problem. Just checking my little list to see that I've done all the things that I need to do. Ed's story. Ed won't mind me telling Ed's story. A lady turned up in her car, came into the house, Maureen. And Maureen said, I've got a problem with my man. He's a real bugger. He won't come here, he won't do anything about it. He's sitting there moping, groaning. What will you do about it? I said, well, you just get him here. He won't come here. There's no way he'll come here. Unsociable bugger he is, he's not going to come here. He's just... So we said, fine, so she came the next week. And how's he doing? Any luck? No, we'll go back. Does he talk about it? He sort of says, how are you getting on? He said, I'm fine. And that's sort of well like that. Third week, same thing. So I said, look, next time you go there, and he asks you, and he says, what's going on? Say, look, what happens if we take all our car keys and we put them into a hat in the middle of the table? And she did, and the next week he was there. And it was, we have, there's many, we're talking of thousands of people now. We're talking of thousands of people. We're talking about a charity that exists purely from the help that people like yourselves have given us, individuals, societies, and it's an open house. I mean, every time we do it, we say, you always say, if you're in that area, come and join, come and see us. We used to try and open 5 days a week. We decided that we needed to specify that time, because sometimes it's so open that you can sit with nothing and then you can sit with probably 10 people. So we open probably sort of twice a week at specific times. But if you want to see us by appointment, obviously you can make an appointment to see anybody that you like there. Holistic notion of diet, very important I think for people when they're ill. Someone to talk to, a friend, counsellor, bringing people together that are the same sort of illness problem. We also found that as a cancer centre, we're not that we're missing out. Thank goodness we're not missing out, because things have changed now. The notion of being supported in a group with a targeted cancer is very different now than it was in the old days, believe you me. And so a lot of people that we might have met, we would direct them towards a support group that specialises in the particular cancer that they're dealing with. And then we'll see them on an ad hoc basis, but we wouldn't see them so much on a regular basis. Every Wednesday evening from 7:30 onwards is the group evening. That's an evening when anybody can turn up, and we've got people still turning up. We've been coming to the group. That's probably the longest serving member of the group as coming as a patient. It's got to be something like 24, 25 years. So there must be something right going on with us. We haven't got all the answers, believe you me. The medical profession hasn't got all the answers, so it's doing a very good job of dealing with a lot of the problems, particularly the ones with young people. If you take certainly youngsters now and the way that they're dealing with blood problems and whatever, that is a totally different world from the world that we first entered. Now, I'm really happy to be here, but I would much rather just say to you, if you have any questions. How it happened, I haven't got a clue. I opened my house. Why did I open my house? Because I had a feeling that I wanted to put something back. I wanted to do something for Susie. I'd been a supporter, but I felt that I did have knowledge, I did have an understanding of being a supporter. I was really ready to share it, and it was just a win. It was a win to say, let's open it, let's go with it, let's do it. And as I say, 30 years on, it's a reality. It's a real place with real people doing a remarkably good job with remarkably young people and old people. That's it, really. If anybody's got anything they'd like to ask me about, I'll be fine. I could go and give you example after example. We are talking seriously of thousands of people.
I think you said initially there were about 9 of these centres out of the country?
Yeah, about 12, I think.
Right.
Really.
How many are there now?
I wouldn't know, and I'll tell you why, because I've lost track of them. I've certainly not lost track of the ones that folded. In Ilford, there was another centre set up, like a women's centre, and that ran for about 7 or 8 years. And the normal running time for a charity like mine is that sort of period of time. Why? Because anybody that's like me who's had that experience wants to do something, but after 7 or 8 years, the energy runs down. You need to be able to hand the baton over to somebody else, or life changes. I've got 3 more children and a wife, you know. They get on beautifully well together, all together, fantastic. The thing about Susie was my first wife, she's an identical twin. And again, you want an example of people coming to say goodbye to her in the church, and I'm sitting next door to her. I'm sitting next door to her identical twin. And Janet, her identical twin, outlived her 3 years ago. So, the rub of the dice really. Why? 2 identical, looking alike, so like people would say, how do you tell the difference? And I say, I got hit a lot.
Super, do you have any question?
Thank you, Mr. President. I must congratulate you for the work you are doing. It's an excellent job you are doing, and I'm so pleased to see you talking to us. I know that when I started working as a general practitioner in those days, there was nothing like counseling, and we used to hide the diagnosis from the patient when he or she was suffering from cancer. Only the family was told. Now the things are completely different. The counseling service support is so good that when a patient is, in those days, nowadays, when a patient is told that you got a cancer, I say patient is half dead. Nobody wants to hear the word cancer. with the support coming from the councillors and people like you, they are so pleased and they are living longer due to this support. And I must say thank you very much for coming and telling us.
Thank you very much indeed.
Dennis.
I think just one thing I would say to that, really. Important thing, cancer is a word, it's not a sentence. One thing that shooks us back, it's a word, it's not a sentence. Get that into your head and you're on the road. And eventually, at the end of the day, much of revival and much survival is to do with what's inside. It's helping your inside. It's helping that immune system, it's helping those thoughts to be positive, to overcome this challenge. Sorry.
Dennis.
Yes, you partially answered my question before I even asked it. I was going to say, how did your daughters adapt to this new way of life?
My daughters were extremely peeved when we moved out of the house to the other one, because they were the greeters. They were the ones that would go to the door. One would have been coming up for a 7th birthday, one would have been 10, and they would be the first to the door to greet everybody with a big hug. And hugging is a really important part. You know, we are energy beings. You separate us away from other people and other things, and we don't operate as well. And a hug and touch, and particularly coming from a youngster, a young one as well. But they were quite peeved because literally that had to end because we couldn't accommodate it and we had to move. But they kept up. In fact, both the daughters, we actually won. There used to be in Ilford, I don't know whatever happened to it. It used to be a carnival with all the lorries go through, and we won the carnival for 2 years. And they were dressed up. We did Alice in Wonderland, and we did I can't remember what the other ones were. My daughters were featured within it, helped to make the things work with the people. I think it's helped them. It helped me tremendously. Obviously, I missed and lost a very lovely wife, but they lost a very lovely mother, and I think it helped them to deal with it by doing something positive. And can I say, I'm a very fortunate man, and Eddie knows. I have another lovely wife and 3 other children, and they're all like that. I'm a very lucky man.
Any other questions from anybody? Eddie, would you like to give a vote of thanks?
Yes,
Please.
thank you fellas for paying attention as you have to Terry. Nobody knows more than me about School's house. As Terry said, I went there after seeing how happy Maureen was after a few visits there and coming home, and I was wondering myself, what's she getting at Sue's house that I can't give her here, you know? And when she mentioned the keys, I thought I've got to go there. You know? I want to see whose keys I'm going to. But anyway, thank you, Terry. I'm still associated with it. I took courses in counselling. I'm a registered counsellor, and I also do visitations. One of the reasons why we renamed the thing was that I was getting called out to Watford places as such. And as Terry says, you never say no to a person. So yeah, thank you, Terry. You've only heard just a little bit of what goes on in Sue's house, and the love and affection that comes from it to anybody that comes there. They don't have to be patients. They don't have to be suffering. They might have lost somebody and they want somebody to talk to. And there's always a smile, and a cup of tea, and a biscuit at Sue's house. And any time, any of you, passing Dawley Stride number 10. If it's on a Wednesday, please do drop it. Terry, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're also being spoken to by a new trustee. We are very, very fortunate in our trustees because we keep retaining trustees who have a real genuine knowledge of what we're about, and that is most helpful. And Eddie's volunteered to do that and will be a real asset to us. And thank you so much.
What was the one attached? Sorry.
One of the things that Terry didn't touch on too is that you've all heard the different charities that some of them, quite most of them, are government funded. We're not. We're not government funded whatsoever. And the only money we get is what we can't collect in the buckets. Sometimes we're fortunate enough to be invited to stores and places like that. But we are on a really rough road. We're in desperate need of support. We're in desperate need of advice from our computer expert over there. We're in desperate need of a new computer. If any of you have got any ideas on how we can get one, or you can help us to get one, please be in touch with me. Thank you very much indeed.
One of the oldest tasks we ask our speakers is to draw a raffle.
This is where I make a friend and lose a lot of friends. Right, I'm going in.
Thank you.
Do you want to read this out?
197.
Oh, no,
197.
Couldn't go to a more undeserving.
One of Yakat's special pieces of Thank you. Cheers. Well done.
Thank you, Terry.
See you later, Yakat.
Oh, can I, one other thing.
I'll print tomorrow.
One other thing. Breaking up protocol. If you ever see anybody with a bucket, put something in it. Even if it's a button off your coat, the joy that you get when you're there with that bucket and somebody puts something in it and doesn't walk by. We all know that. It is so important. I can't walk by anybody. I don't care what it is. Apart from I don't know, I'm too busy to go by. But it's automatic. But yeah, it's really important. As I say, you've done it before.
Any committee chairman or any fellow has any points to raise?